What's up, everybody? My name is Parasite. Welcome back to Rebuilding Nebraska. Today we've got our first recruiting update of year 3. We've got some good prospects that we're looking at a chance of getting. We only have one commit so far, but it looks like we can add even more talent to a team that, with current results, looks like it needs it. Our first and only commit so far is center Robert Evans. He's a pretty good prospect. Our backup center is graduating, so we need some more depth at that position. And he's also a guy that could be moved to guard if we need him there. He's got a really well-rounded skill set, not the best pass blocker, but a pretty solid run blocker with decent impact block, decent strength. That's why I think he could possibly be moved to guard. He's got decent size as well, 6'2", 303. So good, versatile offensive lineman. You can't get enough of those. But now looking at the players that we're going after, we have a new #1 target. And it's not because we lost out on our first one. It's because we really found a better option. Pass rush has been a significant issue with this team. So bringing in a really good pass rusher is paramount. And before we were going after Emmanuel Durbin, he was our former #1 target. Still a guy we're going after, but we found a better pass rusher. Durbin may be a more well-rounded player. He's a really good run defender as well as being a decent pass rusher. But Chris Sullivan is just an out-and-out pass rusher. His acceleration is much better, 88 compared to 76. He's got a little bit more speed, better power moves, better finesse moves. Not as good block shedding, not as good strength, but we need a dominant pass rusher. And Chris Sullivan, I do think, could be that. I still want Emmanuel Durbin to be a potential left side defensive end that can help out in the run and the pass, but we need somebody that can just consistently get to the quarterback. And I'm hopeful that could be Chris Sullivan, if we can land him. He's a new player on our board, so we just really started going after him. We are top of his board. No one else really seemed like they have much interest in him, but I would really like Chris Sullivan. Our #2 guy is Brett Marshall. He's a player that's been on our board the whole time, but middle linebacker is a pretty big need. I was hoping to find someone a little bit better than Brett Marshall, but he's really the best option we've got, and it's a battle between us, USC, and Colorado. And really no team is kind of taking the lead that much. It's a pretty even battle between all three schools. And so this one's probably going to go the entire length of the season. And it's a player I want. He's got some really good attributes. He's a really well-rounded middle linebacker with some decent speed, tackling, pursuit, play rec, pass rushing, block shedding, really good block shed at 80, and decent coverage skills as well. Up next is another defender, athlete Antonio Brooks. I think his best position is as a free safety. He can play corner as well, but we need a free safety more than we need a corner, and I think he can do perfectly fine as a free safety. He's got the speed that I'm looking for. I love rangy free safeties, 94 speed, 92 acceleration. 62 tackles, a little bit low, but for a center of the field free safety, I think that's perfectly fine, and he probably wouldn't need to start year 1, but his coverage skills are very good. 83 man, 84 zone. 85 play rec is extremely good. 79 pursuit as well is very solid. Really good catching on top of it. So I think he could be a very, very good free safety. Then we've got Emmanuel Durbin, who I've already showed you, the really good, well-rounded pass rusher that I'm still interested in. Can't have too many pass rushers. And then we got an offensive player, Timothy Jackson. We've got our right tackle is a senior, so we need to add some tackles, maybe a left and right tackle, just for some depth. Timothy Jackson is a right tackle. I probably wouldn't start year 1, but would provide some really good depth for us. And depth is always nice to have along the offensive line. Really good run blocking, really good strength, really good impact blocking, really good acceleration. I think it'd be a very solid right tackle, but pass rushing, pass blocking, I would say, might be an issue with him. Only 75. Then we've got a guard. Again, need offensive lineman. We've got two starting senior guards at this point. Our starting right guard had been true freshman Kyle Wade, but I think he's been benched. Newerdine Newley, who was our starter last year, is a senior, and I haven't been impressed with Wade so far, so I'm going to give Newley the chance. He's a senior, so we need to bring in some depth at guard. And George Thornton, another pretty solid guard, decently well-rounded, decent pass block, good run block, good strength, really good acceleration. I like George Thornton. Currently, we are behind North Carolina, but we just started kind of going in on him, so just recently put 500 points into him. Hopefully, we can bridge that gap between us and North Carolina. We are the only team to have offered him a scholarship, which I think is the same for Timothy Jackson. No, actually, completely opposite. 4 teams have, but LSU, the biggest team in the bunch, and we've got a pretty massive lead on him. So I'm pretty confident we can get Timothy Jackson. Next up is a tight end, Dave Lee. Our starting tight end is only a sophomore, but some of our backups are a little bit on the older side, so we need to bring in some young players at the position. And Dave Lee is a very good, well-rounded tight end prospect. His speed is fine. His catching is actually pretty dang good. Blocking is not bad either. Doesn't really do much after the catch, but I'm not really looking for that from a tight end. I'm looking for just a chain mover, and that's the kind of guy he is. He's another player we just started putting 500 points into, so even though Wisconsin is getting back into it, I think we can kind of run away with this. Still the only team to have offered him a scholarship. Then we got another tackle, Vincent Henderson, he's more of a left tackle, so we get to fill both needs. And then we've got a backup middle linebacker option with, the race with Brett Marshall being not totally secure. We're pretty far behind Colorado, and USC are right there as well. So I'm not super confident we can get Brett Marshall. So I'm going after another guy that's pretty solid, and that is AJ Bell. He's not as good just at almost anything, but he'd be fine as a backup option. And we've got some young players at position. He can be fine as a backup. He's got the good speed I like. He's got decent tackling, pursuit, play rec, all fine. His pass rushing is basically non-existent. His coverage isn't that good. Block shedding's not quite as good as Marshall's, but he's just a solid middle linebacker that could just be some good depth for us. And then we've got a couple of outside linebackers, and they're actually both JUCO, so their overall is a little bit higher than the quality of the player. I think they're JUCO juniors as well, which isn't ideal, but we need some depth at the position, and there's not many other good non-JUCO options. The best really is Charles James, and he has a potential deal breaker, so we might not be able to get him in the end. So I'm going after these two guys. We need to bring in some outside linebackers, and they're pretty talented players. We could use all the talent we can get. Joe Tyler, probably more of a right outside linebacker, some good speed, some amazing acceleration, decent in the run game, good tackling, good block shed, really good pass rusher as well. Not much in coverage, but the right outside linebacker usually isn't needed in coverage quite as much. So as that, first down, second down run defense kind of guy, pass rushing, I think he'd be really good at the role. And then we've got another one, Mike Chance. He's more of a well-rounded guy. Doesn't have the crazy acceleration, but it's still pretty good at 91. Speed also not quite as good, but good run stopper, decent pass rusher, but much better in coverage. He could play on the left. He could play down the middle as well. Then we got Charles James, who is an underclassman, so I would have a lot of interest in bringing him in, a guy who can develop. But with that deal breaker, I'm not sure. And talent-wise, he's fine. 60 pursuit is really low, though. I don't love that. But he's got some good acceleration, decent block shed, good finesse moves, decent pass coverage. There's not a lot of great options at linebacker this year. Next up, a defensive tackle. Guy we've been going after that I really, really wanted was James Jameson, but it's looking unlikely. Texas and Oklahoma right up there with them, and they're kind of running away with it. Texas is at least. So I think we're probably out of the race. And instead of keep trying to go after him, I mean, it's Texas and Oklahoma. It's going to be hard for us to compete. So I'm going to pull out of James Jameson, and I'm going to go into Brian Simon, who's not even close to as good of a player. If you look at Jameson first, he's a really good pass rusher, decent in the run game as well, but a pretty dominant pass rusher from defensive tackle. And then Brian Simon is just not really as good as at anything. Probably more of a run defender than a pass rusher, but he's just a solid guy that could be a depth piece. We've got some young players there as well. Next up, we've got a backup safety option at free safety. The current guy we're going for is, we're going to battle with Colorado with him. That's Antonio Brooks. So it's not guaranteed. We need to have a good second option, and he is just that. He's a very good second option, actually. Jovan Nelson, a player we've actually run away with. We are miles ahead of everyone else. We haven't offered him a scholarship yet, but if we do, he'll probably commit pretty quickly. If we want him, we can get him. But I prefer the other guy. He's not quite as good at almost anything. He's a little bit better tackler, but his man coverage isn't quite as good. Zone coverage is comparable, but play rec not quite as good. Pursuit might even be a little bit better. So maybe a little bit better run defender, but maybe not quite as good in coverage. Doesn't have quite the speed, quite the man coverage. Still a really good player, though. Next up, another athlete, Brad Vincent. He's probably a wide receiver, and kind of like Brian Simon, he's kind of the backup for a guy I've been going after that I'm not going to be able to get. That's Andrew Branch. He is a wide receiver. Looks like he's going to USC. They've got a massive lead on him, and they are continuing to grow. Even though we're putting 500 points into him, they were continuing to extend that lead. It looks like we weren't going to be able to get him. We can't really fight with USC. I really would have liked to get him. He's got some pretty good speed, decent size as well, decent catching, amazing route running, which is something we really need. We need players that can separate, and Branch is exactly that, but unfortunately, doesn't look like he's coming. But we've got a decent backup option in Brad Vincent. A little bit better size at 6'2", but speed's not quite as good, only 87 speed. Acceleration's still solid. Catching, still solid at 74. Route running, again, not quite as good, 81, still solid. Spec catch, catch and traffic, release, all decent without being exceptional. Doesn't do much after the catch, but maybe a guy that can get a little bit of separation, and a year or two down the line could probably help us out in the receiving game. Next up is another center. We've already got Robert Evans committed to the team, but he could also be moved to guard. So I'm going to keep Joe Williams on the board just in case we do end up moving him to guard and we need another center. Or, we can never have too many offensive linemen. He could also be moved to guard if we need him to. Maybe not as good at guard. Impact blocking's pretty low. Strength not exceptional. But, just another good versatile interior offensive lineman. And we've got a decent lead on him. Up next, we got a couple players that are really good. Like, they're very good players, but they're not of the biggest positions of need. I think they're both best at cornerback, Luke Henderson and Adam Vann, but especially Luke Henderson, they've got some versatility as well. 6'2", good size, decent speed, 89 speed, 88 XL, 85 man coverage, 84 zone coverage, 85 play rec, and 85 pursuit. If he had better tackling, he could be a really good safety, but only 57 tackling. I don't love it. But he's got decent press as well, got good catching. He could also kind of play receiver with that catching. Route running's fine. Catching traffic, the only thing that's really low, along with release. And he can also be running back. He's got the break tackle. He's got the elusiveness. He can fill a lot of roles for this team. Even though he is a really good corner, he could definitely contribute probably year one in multitude of roles. He could also be a quarterback as well. Then we got Adam Vann, who might be a better straight up corner than Luke Henderson, but he's not quite as versatile. He's got a little bit better speed, a little bit better size as well at 6'3". Man coverage 88, which is exceptional. Really good zone, decent press. Play rec also pretty solid. Pursuit not quite there though. Tackling even a little bit worse. Doesn't have quite the versatility. Can't really play receiver. Can't really play running back, but he can also play quarterback. But if we just need a cornerback, he is the cornerback I'd go after. And we've got a decent lead on him. 1,230 over LSU. And we've never really put many points into him. So looks like a player we could get. Along with Luke Henderson, we got a decent lead on him as well, and we're growing that lead over Colorado State. Those are the main guys we are heavily targeting, but we've got a couple other guys we're going after as well. Some just backup options, some maybe options at positions that we don't quite need as much, but would definitely be useful. Starting off, just another backup middle linebacker, Richard Dotson. He's not that good, but just to fill the quota, so we don't have to get a walk-on middle linebacker, I'd be interested in him. We don't have to put many points into him. We've got a decent lead. So if we don't get any of the other guys we're targeting, might just be a guy we can bring in. And then we got Sam Williams, which I've been looking for a short yard running back, a guy with really good trucking, decent break tackle, you know, on goal line carries, on short yardage carries, can come in and do a job. And I think the best in this class that we've got available to us is Sam Williams. We are 1,000 points behind UNC, but we recently just got into it. He's 6'3", got some good size, decent speed as well, 83, but really good acceleration at 90 for a short yardage back, but 85 trucking is what I like to see. Break tackle, I'd like to be a little bit higher, only 72, but it's fine. He's got pretty decent ball carrier vision as well. Again, not a massive need. I'm not going to put a lot of points into him, but would be a player I'd like to get. And then the rest of the board is just backup depth options. At guard, Dedrick Glover. At tackle, Brian Mitchell. Just backups in case we can't get some of the other guys. Another defensive tackle, Luke Moore. Another tight end actually has a higher overall at 75, but I literally don't know how he has a 75 overall. His attributes just aren't as good at almost anything. He's a better blocker, and that's it. 69 catching, 66 spec catch. The rest of his receiving ratings aren't good either. He's got good without exceptional speed, and he's not even an exceptional blocker. He's got really good impact, but pass blocking and run blocking are fine. He's decent after the catch. That's about it. And that's probably one of the least important things for me for a tight end. Then we got another backup guard in Lester Culp. A couple defensive ends. If this was last year, these guys might be one of the top targets on my board. There are a lot of very good pass rushers in this class. So if we don't get some of the guys we're mainly targeting, there's still some decent options. They aren't as good as pass rushers, but they're not bad either. So we've got Eric Moss and David Vincent, both pretty similar players. Yeah, I think we've got another one down here, Bill Wade, just another decent pass rusher. And corner, another position that is very deep, Bobby Palmer, 79 overall. I don't think it's quite as good as that overall. He's got some good speed. Doesn't have the best size, only 5'11", decent tackling. Pursuit is fine. Play rec's pretty solid. 87 man, 84 zone, 82 press. Not as good as the other two athletes that we were going after, Luke Henderson and Adam Vann, as a corner, but still a solid player that I would have no gripes to bring into the team. Then another corner probably, Cedric Cook, another athlete, but I think his best position is cornerback. He's got 83 man, 86 zone, decent press, decent play rec, really good pursuit, and some decent speed, decent size at 6'3". Can be a quarterback as well, but that's probably the only other position he can really play. 44 tackling is very low. I do not love that. But everything else is pretty solid for Cedric Cook. Then we've got a couple wide receivers to round out our board. Javier Fernandez. He's got some decent speed, but amazing acceleration with amazing route running. The only issue is he can't catch. 63 catching. But he's got good catch in traffic, really good spec catch, really good release. But give him a simple pass across the middle, and he's dropping that 90% of the time. So, you know, as an immediate option, I don't have much interest, but as a guy who can develop for, 2, 3, maybe even 4 years down the line, once his catching gets up, he should be a very, very good route runner with that acceleration and route running stat. He should be able to get open every single play, and we kind of need that. So I'm going to keep him on the board just in case we have some free points to throw his way. And then we got another wide receiver, I think, Clint Whitaker. Got a pretty big lead on him. And 6'1", 195, not the best size. Again, really good acceleration, but his route running's not quite as good, only 80. Still not that much catching, 66. But he's got some versatility. He could probably play free safety as well. Obviously, wide receiver and free safety, both big areas of need. So Clint Whitaker is really the perfect bottom of the board guy. Guy that can be pretty solid at both roles. He's got decent speed, really good acceleration. Man coverage isn't the best, but as a free safety, he's got the tackling. Player and pursuit are fine. Zone coverage is very good. And he can be wide receiver as well, a guy that can separate. So some really good versatility to Clint Whitaker. Again, if we have some free points, would be a guy I'd have some interest in, or if we can't get some of our other options, especially at free safety. So that is how the board currently sits. Still only one commit. It looks like we might not be getting very many that soon, because most of the top guys are going after, we're in battles for, we just got into, like Chris Sullivan. Brad Marshall's going to be a battle probably to the end of the season. Antonio Brooks, probably the same thing. Durbin, we could potentially run away with it. We've got a lead over Tennessee, but neither team is really growing it. So it's probably going to be a one-on-one battle between us and Tennessee right till the end. Timothy Jackson, one of the players I think we should be able to get sooner rather than later. But George Thornton, another player that we just kind of recently gone in on, so we'll see how his play develops. And Dave Lee, could run away with him. Vincent Henderson, again, another new guy. And then mostly these guys are backup options or guys we just got in on, like Joe Tyler, like Mike Chance. AJ Bell is a backup guy. And then Brian Simon, another new guy to the board. Nelson, really the next guy that we could run away with, but we haven't even offered him a scholarship. We don't even know if we need him. If we can get the majority of these guys who are targeting at the top of our board, this could be an exceptionally good class. We don't need a whole lot of starters in this team. We've got a good base to build on, but we can always use better depth. And with recent results, we can really use as many good players as we can get. Speaking of recent results, I think I'm going to make the first change to our sliders of the entire series. This is the set that I started the series with. I haven't made a single adjustment, but I think we're going to need to change a few things. I've been pretty happy with the slider set so far. You know, the first season, this team wasn't very good, and so I felt like the results were pretty realistic. And then year two, it was a very young team. So again, I thought it was pretty good, but this team that we've got now, they've had a full season at the team. They're pretty good. Like, we have got a lot of talent, this team, but we look even worse than years prior. And so I think I have to make a few changes to the slider set, because for the first time, I feel like the results on the field, the stats aren't really matching up with the talent we have. But to start, I'm not going to make any drastic changes. I'm just going to slowly, incrementally work on it until we find something we're really happy with. So the two problem areas obviously are running the ball. We can't do it at all. We're averaging like 2 yards a carry, the worst rushing team in the nation, even though we've got some really talented offensive linemen and running backs, including our quarterback. And passing the ball, we cannot throw the ball. Some of it is decision making, which I don't think I can really influence that much. I mean, it's mostly just the quarterback taking off under no pressure immediately when there's no need to, and I don't see how I can really fix that. So instead, I've got to try to find other ways to make the passing game a little bit better. And the way I'm going to do it, starting with the running game, first thing I'm going to change, I'm going to go running back ability for the user. It was 65. I'm going to put it to 70. I feel like our blocking is okay. I feel like the rush defense for the CPU is okay, but I feel like the running backs aren't breaking many tackles and they aren't making very good decisions. So I'm seeing if that'll make a difference. If not, again, I can move run blocking up next. That'll probably be the next thing I'd go to tweak. I think rush defense for the CPU, which is already only at 10. I feel like I don't really want to change that just yet, but could be something we change. And if you want to look at the rest of the user stuff, I'm not going to change anything here in terms of the pass game. So the quarterback accuracy is on 5, and I'm pretty happy with it. I feel like in terms of accuracy, he misses some passes, but that should be the case. But for the most part, I feel like the passes are on target, but I feel like the issue is our receivers aren't getting enough separation. And we've got good players there with good route running ability, especially our number 2 guy. And so I feel like they should be getting more open than they are. So that's really where I'm going to affect it. But the rest of the user stuff, again, I'm not going to change this for now, but you can take a look through this, see whatever we got here. But the one thing I'm going to change for the passing game is I'm going to make the pass coverage for the CPU. It is at 50. I'm going to drop it down to 45. Thought about dropping it all the way to 40, but I'm just going to go small increments to start. So pass coverage down to 45 for the CPU. See if our wide receivers can get a little bit more separation. See if maybe he'll have an open option immediately so he doesn't try to immediately run. I don't know. Something I'll have to work on. And then you can see the rest of the CPU attributes here, the sliders. So quarterback accuracy for the CPU at 10. Pretty happy with that as well. Feel like we're getting pretty realistic results there. Pass blocking could be another thing I work with because we don't have great pass rushers. So I think for the most part, it is kind of realistic. I didn't feel like we had too many sacks the past 2 years from a couple players. So I don't think I'm going to change this yet. And then everything else, I feel like the running back ability is pretty good right now. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with the rest of the sliders. So that's going to be it for this recruiting update. On top of the slider changes, I've also made a complete new playbook for this game against Michigan State. I've completely abandoned the spread offense. It was awful, and I don't think it was just the sliders. I mean, we've seen other playbooks have a little bit more success than this one. We were just not good at anything. So I'm going to debut a new playbook in this game against Michigan State, and that'll be in the next episode. So I'll see you for that one as we look to get back to winning ways after being absolutely embarrassed by Penn State. If you made it this far, why don't you like the video, subscribe, and click the bell? The links to all my socials and my Twitch are in the description. I really appreciate all your support. Thank you all for joining me, and I'll see you next time.